The money for the express subway, of course, has been allocated. In fact, the money contemplated to be needed for the subway in Scarborough, the extension of the Bloor-Danforth subway, is more than what would be needed now to build the express subway. And the justification for it, I think, is quite straightforward. First, we have the evidence of our expert chief planner in the City of Toronto who says from the standpoint of planning that it makes sense to have a Bloor-Danforth subway extension that connects the Scarborough Civic Centre to the rest of the city. Secondly, I don't think there's anybody in Scarborough or any other part of the city who would say if before all this debate, if the question had arisen, should we have been extending the Bloor-Danforth subway to the east over a period of years, perhaps even further east than the Scarborough Civic Centre, they would have said yes. And the fact is, this became a political football years ago. It's been debated over and over and over again. Those debates have been held. Several elections have been held in which over and over again the people have said yes to the candidates who said they're going to build a subway, and I take what the people said seriously. This is going to do a great deal for the City of Toronto and for Scarborough to be a strong part of the City of Toronto. It is a long overdue investment in transit in Scarborough, and combined with the LRT, it is going to do a lot to better serve the people in this part of the city with better public transportation.
But where is the additional $900 million going to come from?
Let me go back. The envelope that was made available just for the Scarborough subway at the time that the subway alone was planned on a three-stop basis was $3.65 billion. That money is committed from the other two governments and from the city's share that is in the process of being collected. And so that money is there. The actual cost of the express subway will be $2.9 billion. What we're telling you today is that had we proceeded ahead with the cost of the three-stop subway, it would have been more than $4 billion, but frankly, it's wise that we decided not to do that. And we're now proceeding with a subway that will cost $2.9 billion and will be paid for out of the money that has been made available by all three levels of government. I have indicated today that our intention is to proceed ahead with both projects because they're both going to make a significant contribution on somewhat different bases to the well-being of this part of the city and to proper transit investment. The express subway is going to connect the Bloor-Danforth subway network to the Scarborough Civic Centre, and the LRT is going to connect neighbourhoods in Scarborough, recognizing that the transit patterns that are based on the evidence of people in Scarborough are that many of them are in fact taking trips that are within the Scarborough area, and this will connect up a very busy campus and a number of neighbourhoods to the rest of the transit network. We now have a preliminary estimate on the cost of that LRT, and as I said, we're going to work with the experts and with our own staff and with the private sector to try and contain those numbers and get them down, but the project is going to proceed. We have the $3.65 billion that is available. We know the subway is going to cost $2.9 billion, and we're proceeding with that. And we're now going to work on all of those numbers by getting people involved from the private sector, looking at ways to build these projects that are going to optimize the costs. And I'm just saying we're going to proceed with those and properly serve for the first time in decades the people in this part of the city. Well, as I've said, first of all, we're going to finalize the numbers that are coming on the LRT are at the preliminary stage. There's been more work done, obviously, over time. Not enough at the outset, I should say, years ago before my time, but we've now done a lot more work on the subway extension, the express subway extension, and we'll now go to work on both sets of numbers and try to work with the private sector and others to get those numbers down. And we will deal with the financing of whatever may be left, if there is any difference left. But the bottom line is you have to have the determination to move forward with these projects and to actually build transit, which is what people told us they wanted us to do, and I have no doubt today that that's what people across the city want us to do, not just with these projects and with Smart Track, but with all of the things that we have now, and for the first time, an actual 15-year plan that is going to get on with doing this and stop with the endless debating and stop with questions that try to find ways not to do things and instead move forward and find ways to get things done and to get transit built, and that's what I'm going to do. I think people all over the city recognize the fact that we need more public transit, first of all. I don't run into people who tell us that we should be finding reasons not to build public transit. Quite the opposite. Secondly, with respect to the eastern part of the city, Scarborough in particular, I find people out here very much want to see us get on with something. They are, in fact, very frustrated at the fact there have been endless debates about building transit. Meanwhile, costs, in fact, have escalated. And that's been a byproduct, in fact, of the fact we have endless debates instead of getting on with doing something. And on my watch, I'm just not going to engage in that endless cycle of debates. I'm going to get on with building the transit that the planners tell us is the best transit for us to build to properly serve this part of the city, which has been underserved and underinvested in for decades. And it's just time to get on with it, and it is time to do so in a responsible manner and to get costs down as best we can. And that is why I've said we're also going to look at a different way of doing these projects, more involved with the private sector and other people we can bring to the task of getting these done as efficiently as we can.
But how can anybody have any?
No, it really hasn't. We found in our experience at trying to sort of rescue the York University Spadina subway system that when we brought some people in who were experts from the private sector to help us bring that project under control and get it completed, that it made a big positive difference. But this one is at the stage now where we've now finally, for the first time, have some realistic, properly done estimates of those projects, properly done in the sense that it's compared to what was available to the City Council when this subway was initially approved, which was next to nothing. And so we will now take the information we have and go out to the people in the private sector and organizations like Infrastructure Ontario and others and say, sit down with us and tell us how we can get these done, obviously as quickly as possible, but also as inexpensively as possible. And I believe that will yield some dividends as it has elsewhere.
How can voters have faith in this?
I'm not actually saying anything with respect to what I expect from working with the private sector. I do know, though, if we employ their expertise and we employ their discipline, we employ their experience and their ideas, that we can do better on these projects than we have done in the past, and that I intend to leave no stone unturned in finding a way to get these projects done, but obviously to get them done for the least possible price. And we're going to get them done. And people, I've stood here now for a year and a half and had people tell me all the reasons we shouldn't do things on a number of fronts. And I am telling you, we are past the point in this city where we can listen to those who constantly repeat reasons not to build transit and reasons we should postpone and debate and study. We've got to get on with this. The city needs it. The people need it. The city's going to grow. The environment needs it. Families need it. Business need it. And we're going to get on with it.
But how can anybody have faith in this? First of all, we hear the ridership numbers were inaccurate. The chief planner acknowledged that. Now we're hearing that it was costed out on the back of a napkin for the little sketch. How can voters have any faith in this? And this is no way to plan transit.
Well, I will only say to you that with regard to how things were planned in the past, I can take no responsibility for that, nor will I. The fact that there were ridership numbers that were published before my time, I really have no comment on those. The fact that there were things done on the back of a piece of paper and that was the sole basis for planning numbers, I can take no responsibility for that. I will take responsibility for the fact that what we are now doing is moving forward to actually get the estimates that we need in order to determine what it's going to cost us to build these transit projects. We have ridership numbers that, as my colleagues have pointed out, are ridership numbers that are equivalent to or better than most of the other stops on the entire TTC. Let's think about that for a minute. These numbers that people want to take apart only because they're trying to have their way with respect to what they think, notwithstanding all the elections that have been held with respect to what transit we build, those numbers are among the most robust for the new Scarborough Civic Centre transit station of any on the entire system. I think if you put that station in there today, it would be the 7th busiest subway station on the entire network. So those are the ridership numbers we're dealing with today. Those are the numbers we're going forward with. We're going to work on the cost estimates to try and get those as low as we possibly can. But the days for debating and endlessly second-guessing ourselves and redeciding after 3 or 4 elections, those days must be over. The people have spoken on this, and we're going to proceed ahead with what they've said they want to see, which is proper investment to provide proper transit service for this part of the city and all other parts of the city too.
Which is a firmness in some way. I mean, at what point do you think the numbers that you just can't spend this much money on a one-stop subway in Ann Arbor.
This is the notion that you would extend the Bloor-Danforth subway to the east. I don't think there's a person you would find that wouldn't say that that is something that it was contemplated first in 1968, I believe, that would be done. And the notion that you shouldn't have been, in fact, over the last number of years, been extending the Bloor-Danforth subway perhaps in both directions is part of why we're in the mess we're in. And there is nobody that talks about doing anything that is less than responsible. In fact, I'm standing here in front of you today saying for the first time we've come forward with estimates that were done on a more thorough basis than the piece of the paper that accompanied the original City Council decision. And I'm saying that I believe it is going to be a wise investment, taken over time, as all these must be, for the City of Toronto to do both of these transit projects. And they cost what they cost. But in the end, the returns that will come from connecting people to opportunity, from connecting up neighborhoods, from connecting this part of the city to the rest of the city, those returns will be very significant, and people will say 25 years from now, thank God they got on with doing this and stopped the debating and stopped the endless debating, and thank God they made the investment, which has had a return many times over that investment over the period between now and 25 years from now, when, by the way, the city itself will be, I think, 1 million people more, and the region will have millions of people more. We've got to stop making these decisions based on what people who want to be negative about a given project are going to say, and look instead at where this city is going in terms of its growth and the need for transit going forward. And going forward, there is nobody who disputes the fact there are going to be millions of people living in this region, and we need all of Smart Track and the LRT and the Bloor-Danforth subway extension, and we've got to get on with them because the clock is ticking, and those people are moving here now, and we're not keeping up. Yes, it was bad planning. I mean, look, my conscience is clear on this because I had the luxury of sitting as a talk show host in a chair when this was all revealed some time ago that those who were ordering the streetcars forgot to or didn't adequately speak to those who were designing the St. Clair streetcar line, and hence you have this fiasco where you have now a couple of million extra dollars and all kinds of inconvenience for people to fix it. And I can't explain that, and I wasn't around for that. But I can just tell you we're trying very hard nowadays not to make decisions on that basis, to actually have people talk to each other. I convene meetings in my office where they actually sit at the table and talk to each other so that we avoid this kind of thing. But I think the people have every right to be upset with a planning regime whereby one group of people were ordering streetcars and the other group of people were building a right-of-way, and they didn't seem to talk to each other to get the streetcars to match the right-of-way. Now we're fixing it. And the bottom line is we're going to get it fixed, and my determination is to try and see, without trying to achieve perfection, you try, but try to see these things don't happen again. Last question. I look at the one thing, you see, when it's convenient for people to talk about ridership and say, well, the ridership numbers are, not up to what they should be compared to other subway stops, and as soon as evidence comes out that in fact shows that the terminus point of this proposed express subway has ridership that would make it today the 7th busiest subway stop on the Scarborough line, then the opponents go to some other argument. Well, that argument actually has some merit, so we'll go to something else. And I'm saying that people are tired of that. They're tired of the decision-making process being held hostage by people who really just want their point of view accepted as to what kind of transit or where or on what day it should be built. And they're saying to me loud and clear, because I see more people with respect than probably everybody here on a weekly basis, and they're saying in this part of town and in every other part of town, get on with building the transit. That's what we elected you to do. That's the kind of person that we put in place to get this transit built, and that is exactly what I'm going to do, and it is going to be done responsibly. It is going to be done in a business-like way. We are going to have people talk to each other who are involved in these things. We are going to involve the private sector with their ideas and ways of doing things that are better, but we're going to build the transit, and that is going to include a subway in Scarborough that is going to be approved because it makes sense. Our planning people say so, and it's a good investment in the future of this city. Thank you very much. That's it.
As Mayor John Tory out in Scarborough addressing the media about a report that is